business leaders and surgeons and barristers. I see women who are going to win elections and science competitions and arts awards.
Do not be afraid to fail.
We can
Alrighty, everyone. Happy Talk Tuesdays. And Kenshay and I actually decided to release this episode, this installment of our health, wellness, and wholeness series as a Talk Tuesday, just as testament to how we live and walk the walk that we talk here on our platform. And today's installment of this mini series is all about the 3Bs. And the 3Bs being breaks, boundaries, and balance. And we are going to get, into the talk topic, just sharing our own experience, our own tips and tricks, of how we've managed those things and how they've intertwined, actually living them out loud. So I'll go ahead and let her introduce herself, and then we'll get started for the day.
Hi, everybody. I am Kenshay Saxton, as you may know, and if you don't, it's just me. But I am the executive talk partner for Tip Talks. And on today, like she said, we're going to dive into this talk topic because it's something that we talk heavy about. It's something that we walk, and it's something that we hold dear. So she said it was 3Bs, but I think when I get to talking, it's going to end up being 4.
Man, I have the same experience.
And I bet you we're going to have the same.
I bet you we had the same word. Okay.
I'm ready for this.
All right. So, just being completely frank and transparent, we came off of a very top heavy 2022, with our very first retreat and just all that went into that. We came off of the year 2022 knowing that we needed a break. But because of the first quarter of the year and knowing how excited we were to be able to get the calendar out and, follow up with things while the iron was hot, we kept going. And we kept going knowing that this first quarter of the year, this 2023 Q1 would be busy just as well. So I think for me personally, when we talk about those 3 things, I struggle with what order to practice them in. Because, for me, depending on the order that you practice them in will determine the outcome.
Right.
They all interject ultimately at some point, but the outcome will differ depending on where and how you practice them. What are your thoughts about the practice of the 3 in itself?
So for me, I'm going to start with setting my boundaries. I think that's where I start at, because if you don't set those, then it's kind of hard for everything else to kind of fall in place. So always set the standard, I should say, which is my boundary.
Yeah.
And then once I go from my boundary, then in between those boundaries, you're going to have those stipulations where you need that break. Yeah. So I come off of my break next. Yeah. And then after my break, I would have to say that it's balanced. So everything's once I take that break and once I set my boundaries, I take my breaks, and then the balance of it all will make it all come into play, right? Per se, for that walk in my life, for that journey. Yeah. So that's the topic that I would probably go, the 3 I would go with mine. But I got a 4th one, but I'm gonna wait till we get down in there.
So it's so crazy. So the way that we do our outlines for each show is we have a shared document that we type in our outlines and our ideas, our talk topics. Kenshay never looks at the outline. She never looks at the outline. It's kind of like, hey, the outline is available just so that you know what you're getting yourself into and what we're talking about. She may look at it the day before, but it's likely the day of when we sit down to record is when she looks at the outline. So it's crazy because for me, I knew March was going to be busy. We released the magazine. We did, we had the photo shoot that we were working on. We had the release of the actual, of the visionary planner. And it came with so many deadlines for the planner that I don't think we kind of, expected or anticipated. So we had so many things going on during the month of March. And that's outside of our own regular work life. So for me, my alignment of each of those words are the same. I went back and forth on which would be best, like if it would be best to have breaks, boundaries, then balance, or balance, breaks, then boundaries. But I landed on boundaries, breaks, then balance. So we aligned just the same.
I can't wait to see how fourth be, y'all.
I'm not sure our fourth B may be the same. It may be the same. So we're definitely going to talk about boundaries first, because we agree that in order for the actual standpoint of the outcome to be what it is, it starts with setting boundaries. And I like what you said about setting a standard, because we talk so heavy about, boundaries being what they are, but truly boundaries are a standard and a principle of practice for each and every own person. And you are the one that sets that standard. So for me, I have grown to understand that there's beauty in boundaries. There's beauty in setting standards. There's beauty in knowing that, setting that I guess that bar to a certain extent, and how to measure out, how to plan, what you'll receive, what you won't receive. That's the start of it all. And it's beauty in that because it starts with you.
Right. And I think when I talk about boundaries and how I feel about, because at first I was like really hard on myself about boundaries, and a lot of people think boundaries are only set when it comes to love, and it's not. I think the idea of your self-worth is also discovered when you set your boundaries, because you know who you are. And once you're able to know who you are, then those boundaries become like second nature. Like, this is what I'm going to accept, this is what I'm not going to accept when it comes to love, career, any type of relationship or anything, just life period. Setting those boundaries, like you say, it's a standard, and it's what you have to start with for me, because if you don't, then everything else gonna be whimsy, and I don't, can't do it.
I think for me, the beauty and boundaries, it actually started with my work in my career, because I was being asked a lot of me that, was at the very bottom of the job description that says like as otherwise or else assigned. And
that was in a footnote.
It was in a footnote. And it being in the footnote, I had to like stand up for myself. Like, I love my job. I love what I do. I think my greatest passion and love for my job and my career has come from always being able to sharpen my skill set. And not everyone not everyone has that opportunity in their own career. So for me, it's always been about, sharpening my skills and making sure that I'm always challenged, but sometimes I don't want to be challenged too much. Sometimes I want a little routine. So for me, like when it came down originally to setting boundaries, it started in my career, but I find that when it comes down to boundary setting is another form of love. And when it comes down to love for something, love for someone, you have to set a boundary, because you don't want your ideal of that love, that ideal of that relationship, what you joy from that thing, person, place, to be daunted or be tainted by unhealthy boundaries. So I can remember a preacher that I, that I follow on social media that I really like listening to is, I think his name is Jerry Flowers, and he talks a great deal. He did like a whole series on loving the wrong person. And for me, it wasn't just loving the wrong person. It was like loving the wrong person, loving the wrong thing, loving like all the nouns tied into one. And he talked about how, when you love something or someone, that you open yourself up to a vulnerable place. You open yourself up to pain. But if you open yourself up to pain and to love and to being hurt, the value is in the outcome of those things. I'm a firm believer that the people closest to you will always and oftentimes be the one that hurt you, because you allow yourself to be in a vulnerable state with them that you wouldn't allow any other person. But the beauty of forgiveness, the beauty of boundary setting, is you allow yourself to be able to welcome back in the fold and be able to have a new defined relationship or love, whatever that looks like, that is rewarding and fulfilling for both yourself and the other. So I think for me, when it came down, and it's funny that you said like people always feel like boundary setting has to do with love or has to do with some form of relationship. I feel like the life that we live is relational. And because we live in a relational life, everything that you touch, everything that you're connected to comes with some form of love, and you have to set boundaries with those things.
That was good. You summed all that up real good.
So I think for me, like, when it comes down to the boundary is being able to set the standard, but also understanding that the standard will come with some love. It's going to come with some pain. It's going to come with, some
trials and tribulations,
some tribulations, some hurt and all that or whatever. But the important thing, like you mentioned, is to know your own worth. And when you know your own worth and you tap into your worth, then you can set that boundary, and that boundary will likely be accepted by the other person because they know your worth just the same.
But if you don't set those boundaries and other people don't know of those boundaries, then you can't fault anyone but yourself. So always remember, boundary setting starts with you. You're the one who's the author and creator of that boundary. So therefore you need to stand firm on the boundaries that you set. Don't go back and forth on your boundaries, because then what's the point of it? You see what I'm saying? So be careful and be mindful, be intentional about the boundaries that you set. And thus everything else will fall in place.
So what is one boundary that you would say that you've learned to set this year?
Putting me first. So when I say putting me first, it's in every aspect of my life. I can recall a time where, I would be asked to stay at work, 24 hours a day, literally. And who am I? I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it because that's just me. But then I'm like, Kenshay, why? No, you give your 9 to 5 or whatever your hours are, and then everything else is a bonus. So therefore, I'm not obligated to stay this time. But then also my health became a point where I was like, okay, well, you tired all the time. You stressing for what? I'm not going to kill myself for not putting my boundaries in place. And it wasn't my job's fault. So it wasn't my boss's fault. It was me. It's because I went in with no boundaries and they walked all over that. So now that I know my worth and I know that what I bring to the table, it'll be valued. So straight 9 to 5 and everything else is a bonus.
For me, a boundary that I've set this year has been access. Like access to me. Because like you, like I know my worth, I know what I bring to the table. And because I know my worth and I know what I bring to the table, then sometimes access to me has been one that I've been flexible with. Being there, being present, being in the moment and showing up, but not getting that same in return. So tweaking the access to me.
I love that.
Tweaking the or changing or revising or modifying the access to me is a boundary that I've set for, people in my life. And I feel that when it comes down to that, like people always talk about, you want to match the energy. I don't want to match the energy. And the reason that I don't want to match energy is because I don't want to treat people like they treat me. You understand what I'm saying? I think that's what makes you a bigger person. Like when people can treat you wrong, but you don't walk away with ill will or negative condensation to treat them the same way. But you learn the lesson in how better to handle and how better to deal with them. You don't have to treat people the same way. I don't believe that you necessarily treat people how you want to be treated, because how I want to be treated may not be how you want to be treated.
Or how you can be how you are. The flexibility that you have to love me may not be what I want or what I require. So no expectations bring no downfall. So therefore going into that, and I get it, like the whole access point that you talked about, being selfish with you. That's not being selfish. Is that you got to put you first. Goes back to self-worth. You have to give you all of you in order to give others some of you, if that makes sense. And then Mother Bergs of the church, I bring this up all the time because I was big on this cup, like half full, half empty, whatever the case may be. But she said, nah, baby, I want my cup full. And then what spills on that saucer is for everybody else. So I need to fill me up in order for something to come out to be given away.
The overflow.
I love that. Yes.
I love that.
So
a very important lesson that one of my close friends taught me about when it comes to showing up for people is that you can't expect people to show up for you the way you should show up for them.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to learn to expect and love people at their level best.
Mm-hmm.
So my 60% is not going to look like your 60%. But if you can give of yourself a strong 40%, that's 60% to me, because I know that took a lot out of you. And I think of like One Gold Sister just the same, and I'm sure she wouldn't have a problem with saying this, but One Gold Sister, she's a part of a couple of different organizations, and she's always busy, always on the go, always have something. But when she comes, she shows up, she present, and she supports. So she may have 3, 4, 5 events in one day that she got to attend, and she'll say, hey, I'm gonna come. I can't stay the whole time, but she's showing up early and she helping you do X, Y, and Z. That's her strong 60-40% that she's able to give of herself. So I think it's important to understand that when it comes to access, matching access, when it comes to being accessible to people, it's about making sure that you're giving the best pieces of yourself to people. Because when you give the best pieces of yourself, if it's 40, if it's 90, then even if it's 40, it's gonna feel like 90. You understand what I'm saying? So I think that's the lesson that I've learned, and revising or changing the access that I give of myself to people. That's a boundary that has been very rewarding for me. So going into breaks. And I think we are warranted like a break. We are definitely warranted a break. I think we all kind of got into the motion or the mind frame last year when it was like booked and busy. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be booked and busy because it sounds good.
It sounds real good.
It sounds real good. Booked and busy.
Until it actually happens.
Yes. And I mean, as our platform grows, and we've talked a lot about like elevation within ourselves, but seeing the elevation in our platform and the things that are happening and where we're going, I'm like, Lord, thank you, Jesus. We appreciate it. But we don't want to be booked and busy, Jesus. We want to be blessed and balanced. Because let me tell you, being blessed and balanced allows you time to break. It allows you time to rest. And I've come to learn that I cannot always be productive if I'm booked and busy. I need a day to just rest. I need a day to step back and to have time to myself.
To also recharge.
Recharge, yes. Because when you take time to recharge, it's like you say with the cup. You fill your cup up, so that when you come back, what's left on the saucer, the overflow, that's the productivity, that's the good wealth that you're giving of yourself to people.
That's good. You didn't say my fourth word. That was your word?
No, that's not my word.
Oh, my word, my blessings.
That's not my word.
All right.
That's not my word. So when it comes down to breaks, I think what's helped me, especially in this first quarter going into the second quarter, when it comes down to breaks, it's planning for a break. And the only way that I know that I got through the month of March was planning and preparing. Because looking at my calendar and looking at my body, looking at my mind, my heart, my spirit, I was booked and busy every weekend, every day, just about, on top of like having kids, having a job, having a wife, like all these things that I had to do, all these hats that I had to wear. I was booked and busy. But I think the way that I prepared, because I wanted to make sure that I had some time or something for myself, was during the month of February, because I always like write out my month, like at least I finalized my month prior the week before. By Wednesday, everything is finalized in my planner. And I start working on what that quarter is going to look like the previous quarter. And then throughout the quarter, I write stuff down. But I knew in February that I was going to be a bad mom in March. And by bad mom, I'm gonna, being transparent, my kids are very privileged. Like, they're used to home cooked meals. They're used to me being accessible to them by any regard. And I told them, like, look, I'm gonna be a bad mom this month. Y'all are gonna have to eat takeout. Y'all gonna have to go with the flow. I mean, we all have these things going on, and having these things going on, I had already like had a conversation with my support system. Kenshay, this is what my schedule looks like. Mama, this is what my schedule looks like. This is where I'm going to need the support. This is where I'm going to need the help. Like being able to sit down and have a conversation with husband. Like, this is what I'm going to call this week. This is what goes after this. So planning for that, it prepared me for what now I can look forward to my break this month. And I also, because I wanted to make sure that I stayed filled up during last month, I knew that I wasn't going to be in the mindset to want to read. So I got a new journal so that I can journal and be able to keep track and still be able to have a way to detox throughout, this crowded space of a month. And then I bought a new color book because I knew that I was going to need a way to have time for myself and to recharge. So even if it was like 10 minutes before bed, and I'm big on reading and having a good wind down, but sometimes, that wind down did not happen. That wind down looked like laying down. down. So, and preparing for that, I went ahead and I made sure that I had these things in place so that if it was 10 minutes before bed when I was able to journal, whether it was 5 minutes in the morning before I got my day started to, color or something like that, just to make sure that I had some sort of outlet. How do you prepare for your breaks?
Planning would be number one, because I feel like if I don't plan for it, it doesn't happen, because it don't just come by the wayside, because if that's the case, then it's just going to be booked and busy. But being able to be booked and busy, it's a blessing in itself, but at the same time, you have to remember that you have to balance it all. And that's what we're getting at. But planning for breaks is how I pretty much prepare for them, giving ourselves some time. One thing she did not mention, we had all of that on top of having to co-host a visionary party,
we did.
which was also in March. So it was like, we got this. So when we talked about it, it sounded good, y'all. It really did. Now keep in mind, we didn't talk about it in March. We talked about it in February. So we knew what we had, but it sounded real good. Then March got here, I was like, and then last night she had to tell me, girl, I see you every day. And I'm like, yes. But it's a blessing in itself, but also just preparing. Like you said, we've prepared for this. We've done what we needed to do. Now we're going to be on the slope of breaking. Breaking so we can prepare to come back even harder. Because we just need to, recharge. Our power source is still there. It just has to be recharged. So we got to plug into that.
I love that. So I love that. I love your analogy of the power source and just simply having to plug into the power source to recharge. I think when in the past, I've been the type that I'm like, okay, let's take, a week or so, whatever. Now I'm like, no, let's take some time. And I find that when I didn't take the appropriate amount of time, that even after a small break, that it felt heavy. Like I still feel heavy. I still feel heavy.
Yes. You take a cat nap. Yes. You be like, oh no, I can't do nothing. Yes. Now. Yes. So it's just like a cat nap. So we're gonna refrain from doing the cat nap break. And we're going to take a full length nap. Yes.
Still feel groggy. Yes. I'm one that still feel groggy if I don't get the right amount of rest and the right amount of break. And I know my body will tell me when I need to break, because my body will physically shut down. It will shut down. And one thing that I think about when it comes down to like being able to balance and understand the balance of going into the third B is when it comes down to balance, the most important piece of balance is not the quantity, but the quality. Do you want 100 pennies or do you want 4 quarters? Because they both have the same value. They both are $1, but having them 100 pennies is going to feel heavy. Having them 100 pennies is going to cause you to break down. It's going to cause you to have an unplanned, unprepared for, malproductive breakdown versus 4 quarters where you can take the time, where you can make a means, make a way that you can plan and prepare, and you can recharge, plug into their power source so that you can truly refuel and be refreshed.
I agree. And the analogy used with the 100 pennies and the 4 quarters, that is something to think about, because 100 pennies is real heavy. Even though it's gonna spend the same. the outcome will be the same, but it will be a heavier journey to take on that 100 pennies versus the 4 quarters.
Yeah. I think when it's come down to balance for me, like my fear has always been like, if I don't balance appropriately, if I don't balance accordingly, then it leads me to fear my own procrastination. And for me, procrastination is not about like getting the job done. And I think I've shared this before in so many words. Like my procrastination always is associated and comes with fear, fear for the outcome, the success of it all, and how to get to the outcome. But what I'm learning is to embrace my own fears of failure. I'm learning to face my own fears of procrastination and plan for them. Yeah. So even when we started out with the calendar, we had been with the planner, we had been talking about this at least for like 6 months. And we, got knee deep into the conversations. It wasn't until maybe 90 days before, when we released the visionary boxes, is when we got serious about the planner. And even in that, having the conversations before and having the shell and the blueprint of what we wanted, it allowed for me to procrastinate a little bit and to be able to have those moments of fear and have that open space so that I would still meet the deadlines. So I think when it comes down to balance, it's important to save space for those things that you find in fear or in failure, incidentals. It's important to save that space, because saving that space, meaning that you're preparing for it, meaning that you have the outcome that you can overcome and ultimately get to.
But and then at that end, no part of the scale will feel slighted, by no means, and you'll have a true balance if you focus and do right by that.
I heard it said this way: between reckless and coward is courage. So you can be a coward and not step out, or you can be reckless and step out wrong. But the median in that is to have the courage itself to step out. So balance for me is to truly be courageous in stepping out, stepping out and stepping forward with the things that I look forward to the things that I want to achieve and accomplish and have forthcoming. The elevation, the elevation for this platform. I'm nervous. I'm excitedly nervous, but I'm finding balance in making sure that we're courageous in doing and moving forth. So as we wrap up this talk time, this special talk time, on the Talk Tuesday, what are your thoughts, or what advice would you give to our audience that's tuning in today about the 3 B's and tying that into your 4th B?
Set your boundaries, know your worth, but in the meantime, take that break so therefore that your balance will be a healthy balance, and then look for your blessings. So if you do all of that correctly and to the point to where it's healthy, your blessings will flow. That's my tie-in.
So my 4th word,
let's see.
My 4th word is breakthrough.
Yeah.
My 4th word is breakthrough, because I found when I set boundaries, when I take the breaks and I find balance, my outcome is always a breakthrough.
That's good.
And I've learned that we live in a life of highs and lows. Like that's going to be life, period. And you want to make sure and you want to welcome those highs and lows, because the highs and lows are the ones that give you the breakthrough. If you go through life, flatlined, then you'll never learn a lesson. You'll never know what it feels like to be on the mountaintop, or you'll never learn to value the mountaintop until you've been in the valley. And one song that I love by Maverick City is when they talk about how the breakthrough, how your creator, your higher power is in the valley. So for me, being able to balance and align those four things, I'm excited about the breakthrough. I'm excited about the outcomes, because I know that if, like you said, if I set my standards, if I'm clear about my standards, and I take the time to break where I can recharge, where I can fill my cup, where I can find a way to always be productive in practice and in theory, and that I balance those things, that the outcome of it, the alignment, those things that interject will render a breakthrough. That's going to be the blessing for me.
I love that. That's good.
Yes, I'm so happy that we both had a fourth word, and I promise we didn't even have that conversation until we sat down. I'm so happy we had a fourth word, and our fourth word is definitely tied into each other. That's awesome. I
love that.
Yes. So we hope that you guys have enjoyed this special edition of this platform and our presentation of the second installment of Health, Wellness, and Wholeness, a series that we are working toward and we're presenting to this platform and talk audience, so that you guys can program them into your everyday life. Shay and I really pride ourselves on being conversation starters. So being able to have this conversation and present it to you guys, we hope that it's a conversation that you keep going, that you keep it going in your peer group, on the job, with your apparently with your supervisor and your manager, because we having those conversations. We're having those conversations, but in your peer group and your friend group, just the same. So we do have a couple of announcements that we want to share, just a few, because we're going into a break, and our break won't look like what you're used to. Like, we'll still remain visible. We still have things that are going on. It's just less things that are going on. It's less planned things that are going on. And I'm happy to report that we completed our very first interest meeting for this year's 2023-2024 Visionary Retreat. And it was so awesome.
It was. The feedback, the encouragement, the people that came yesterday for that meeting, it was awesome. It was awesome.
And I think just about everybody in the room were just as excited as we were. And that's what keep us going. Like, when you're excited, we're excited. And we exceed that excitement because we know what the excitement is for. And we shared, the general piece of it. So when you get the detail, the
we
specific,
gave the meat. We'll add the potatoes and the side. At the next interest meeting. So please be on the lookout for that message that will come on our social medias, at the different platforms, and just be aware that, again, it's all about intention with us. So if you are intentional about, actually participating, then that you hit that bell or whatever we have on there, you hit it, you send us a message, we get back with you with the information for the meeting, and then you actually attend the meeting. And that's how the invites are sent out to come into the meeting.
And I anticipate the next meeting will be about 3 to 4 weeks out, where we'll be able to have more people in the fold and to be a part. And then at the meeting, we give details about the landing space, the lineup, and the vendors that have confirmed thus far, as well as the pricing and planning for the actual retreat. And we won't be sharing that information publicly on the platform, because we want to make sure, like Shay said, that those that are participating, those that are coming in the fold, are coming with intention. Because that, for me, is where you get the greatest impact. So we're excited about, of course, that, but we also have our installment of Community Empower, issue 3, volume 1, that is going to be released this month. And that installment is all centered around the vision for the culture. So I am excited in regards to being able to have this publication to come out. We have some awesome entrepreneurs that are a part, some featured entrepreneurs, and of course we've welcomed back welcomely our resident photographer, Black Queen Media, Sequila Lewis. So we're excited to get that, going. And we also have 2 new episodes that are going to be released in the series for the health, wellness, and wholeness. And those are going to be all about financial literacy. This month of April is not only financial literacy month, but also stress awareness. And we know finances can be stressful. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about that with 2 new guests, 2 new guests that you've seen before, but they're new to the podcasting, standpoint of Mo, which is our media piece. So I'm excited to get them talking. I'm excited for their presentation. So you can anticipate that coming soon. And then rounding out this month, we'll have our annual Mother's Day special in May. And then we'll have our Father's Day special in May. And also something really, really cool that we've been working on for the guys. So more details to come about that as well. So those are the announcements.
You did. I have one more. So our visionary planners are still on our site.
Yes.
We dropped a lot of hints for y'all today, a lot of gems, a lot of shameless plugs, whatever. But however, go on there and purchase you one. You will not be disappointed with this purchase. I promise you. It's from March to March. That's all the details I'm gonna give you about it. But you won't find one like it. I promise you. It's also in our Shopify storefront. It's in our Facebook, you can find the link on there. Instagram, you can find the link on there. Hit our DMs, however, by whatever means you have, go ahead and order that planner. I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. We talk heavy on planning, and in order to get those boundaries set, those breaks happening, and those breaks, and then the balance, all of that comes with planning. So therefore, grab your planner, and we'll gladly ship it out as soon as you order it.
Of course. And it comes with the complimentary multicolor pen.
I'm telling y'all, them pens, they write good.
They do.
They look good.
Yes.
They feel good.
They
are the best.
Yes.
So get you one.
Yes.
Get you one.
All right. So those are the announcements. And as always, we encourage you to remain connected here to our platform on YouTube, which is JJAYKC Podcast, but also on Facebook, which we're now back on, JJAY Kencole, KENCOLE Marketing LLC, and then on Instagram, our home site, which is JJAYKC Marketing. So please, 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 like, share, follow, be a part of the community. And in the meantime, as always, we encourage you to keep talking. Have a good evening, everybody. Happy Tuesday.